Well, wait a minute. Let's go
Oh,
back.
I think everyone's fairly familiar with it. All of the material has been available to us for 3 months. As we go through it, I will ask you if you have any
You want me to give a little
input. Yes, just give us a quick summary of what it
I can
is.
give you a bullet point kind of deal what's going on.
Are you comfortable with questions?
Yeah, no, I just started over. He was gonna do Zoom and he just got called for emergency horse visit.
You do what you know. Until they care for it.
He said if there is something, call him, you know. I can send him the Zoom number. It's like-
You can have someone hold it
I
up.
think we got it pretty well. Okay, I just want to know. I do it drawing.
And Bob is supposed to be here for our second meeting by Zoom.
Okay.
I'm assuming Bob hasn't been on Zoom all along, has he?
Yeah.
Okay. But he wasn't sure, he had some conflict or something else.
I mean, most likely it's me.
Fairly straightforward, but
Of course, I hope it is.
and the only issue we had, the question we had was the apartments, and that's been resolved. We have a legal opinion on that, so.
Okay. All right. That's just fine.
We'll see what everybody says.
Yeah.
It's a pretty equine friendly.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
Paperwork was all.
And it's all inside there. It's not like that.
Carl. Carl, you might want to move your microphone on this side of your computer. So that, because you tend to turn this way to talk.
All right.
That does make a lot more sense.
And she thought it was,
There.
Well, it
we
was
go.
wrapped around the leg of it. When he tried to pull it closer earlier, it was wrapped around the table leg. It was stuck underneath it.
there you go.
Okay, are you all set?
I have regular, it's recording, we're good.
We're good to go. Okay. Because it's after now.
Right, we're ready.
Hey, we got something done. That's a good thing. Now let's see what else we can get done.
That's our leader cracking the whip. It's good. This is a good thing.
You have to rein things in where we can find a compromise with all of it.
It does, yeah.
And that was, because like I said, some regulation is better than none. in this
Yes.
particular case. Even if we go big.
I will admit that my last comment, there were some times like, I used to love going camping.
Yes.
Campfire never bothered me, but there was a few times at Timber Ridge, if there was zero wind, and there was like 1,000 campfires
Oh,
going.
you can't breathe.
Like you could barely even like see them, the smoke was just all right there. And I know they used to do like dodgeball or something like at midnight, and people that look over there were playing, so now dodgeball is at like 10. I don't know what came first, the campground or houses, but
Almost simultaneous.
yeah,
That's an older neighborhood in there.
yeah.
And Timber Ridge predates most rules.
Well, right, I know.
All right.
There or something.
Right, that's what it was in the beginning, for a long time.
I'm going to call the next meeting. We're gonna call it 7:10. If I can't see the clock, it doesn't count. 7:11, that close enough. Okay, just a moment.
You want to?
This is relevant, so I'm going to take 30 seconds. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to call our regular scheduled meeting to order at 7:10. If you would all join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Again. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call of commissioners.
Darrow,
Here.
Jacobson,
Here.
Keaton,
Here,
Here,
Robo.
Here.
beautiful. Okay, set or adjust meeting agenda. I would like to propose that we do exactly that. We will be holding our public hearing and then we will be moving on with our agenda and our meeting minutes, et cetera. And then coming back in unfinished business, we'll be discussing those items. But it has been our tradition to take any items on our agenda that are directly relevant to someone and have to be addressed tonight and move it to the top of the agenda. So I would like to move the horse barn on Lossy Road to number 1 on unfinished business, if no one objects to that.
sounds fine to me.
I
Does that
agree.
work?
I agree.
Okay. All right, and I would like to move the preamble that we have right up in between D and E. So that if we get time to take a look at it, we can just take, because I think it's a 5-minute thing. And I'd like to move it into unfinished business. Does that work for everybody? So if we
Yeah.
have 5 minutes left to look at ordinance, which I don't anticipate, we'll take a look at that one.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's also very pertinent, even though you've never seen it before. All right. We will, anybody else have any other recommendations for adjustments to our agenda? Or additions? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on. Any conflict of interest with items on the agenda this evening? Okay. All right, and now we will move on to public comment. Anyone who has public comment of general interest this evening can come forward. I will let you know, there will be opportunities during the public hearing. If you are making a public comment about Article 25, site plan review, special use permits, or if you are making a public comment about the equine veterinary clinic, Classic Equine, I would ask that you hold those until we are actually addressing those in public hearing. So anybody that has a public comment on any other topic, feel free to make your way to the podium.
Good evening, Vicki Beam, building on Baggs Road. Please come out and take a look at it. We would love to have you stop by. I know that on the agenda this evening, there's actually some continuing ed on site condos. And so I wanted to actually cover a couple of things. As I understand, the preliminary for the site condo on Baggs Road did go through. You all took a initial deposit, and I know that a lot of it has not been presented, but I feel that some things have to be addressed before it goes much further. Whitewater Township zoning ordinance lacks adequate specific standards for site condominium review. Thereby, the proposed Baggs Road project should be reviewed as a planned unit development pursuant to Township zoning ordinance section 3111. Conventional development, which states that conventional developments are those that are not PUDs and that comply with the conventional development requirements with setting aside land as permanently protected open space. The township discourages this type of development where it may detract from the township's rural landscape and natural resources, i.e. guided by the master plan. And as we know, the zoning ordinance sections 3124, 3140, and Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires a minimum of 50% of gross parent parcel be permanently set aside for open space. You all were discussing campgrounds where people are going to be coming and staying for short periods of time. We're talking about site condo. You were talking about houses and spaces in between. And that, when it was brought up, it was flatly said there would not be open space. There would not be barriers around that. So I really want you guys to seriously think about where we're at and where we're heading with site condos in our township, not just Baggs Road. And mathematically, for 10 campgrounds, 10 campsites on the 40 acres, you would have 400 campsites on that. I don't know if you guys really thought that through, but that's on if you have 10 campsites per acre. So thank you for your time.
Okay, do we have any other public comment in town hall? Okay, do we have any public comment not related to the vet clinic or Article 25 from Zoom?
We do Connie Highmore.
Okay, Connie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Connie Highmore, Bags Road. Good evening. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak. I ask each of you, take a deep dive. I know you're working hard on this master plan and stuff, but the Township Master Plan, the zoning ordinances, and the Michigan Enabling Act, where it pertains to site condominiums. I'm not an expert, not by a long shot. Since thrown into this arena, I have read articles, done some investigating, and asked a lot of questions to people that are experts. I'm asking each of you on your own to do that. We need you, all of you, to defend Whitewater Township Master Plan. As it stands, the master plan and the zoning ordinances do not comply with the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. There is so much controversy here. Just because someone continues to say the same statements about site condos over and over and over again does not make them true. Please look at this very serious subject matter. I promise you, you will be surprised or shocked to see how many things need immediate attention before a site condo is approved. This is not a Bags Road site condo issue. This is a Whitewater Township issue that will also affect our neighboring townships. Kalkaska County having 12 townships and Grand Traverse County having 16 townships. We all know that when one of our neighboring townships takes action, it's most often expected that others will follow. Let's not make mistakes that will have lasting ramifications to the area. Take some time, look at the problems that exist in our master plan and zoning ordinances. Don't move forward with the site condo development until we can do it right. We are not against the site condos. We just want Whitewater Board, Planning Commission, and zoning to comply with the law. Please help us and do what's right for the people of Whitewater Township. And I thank you in advance for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Do we have any other public comment from Zoom? Okay.
Kim, I have a question, and it's, please understand, I'm new to a lot of this, but does the planning commission have the authority if this is a site condo, do we have any legal authority to not grant them permission?
I would have to defer that one to the attorneys.
Because I'm under the impression, and I haven't checked with an attorney either, that at the end of the day, the law is set up so they have the right to use that property as they choose, and it really is that.
I'm going to cut you off
Okay,
just a little
perfect.
bit because I don't want to go off of our agenda.
Okay, no
But
problem.
that
Sorry.
does fit under our continuing education, and hopefully we'll get at least 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the meeting
Okay, perfect.
to address it.
Mhm.
So, and I've been asking Bob for educational material. Now's as good a spot as any. I'm going to interject. For those of you that have been wondering, Bob's having internet trouble and he hasn't been able to connect. He's been trying to hook up with us for a while. That's what that text I paused to take was a minute ago. Okay. He was trying to get everything connected, but it wasn't working for him. So
I'm connected now.
thanks, Bob. We'll get back to you on that. So
Okay.
write down Al's question and hopefully we'll be able to address that. All right. Are there any other public comments from Zoom? Okay, we will move on. Public hearings. Our first public hearing is on Article 25, which is site plan review and special uses. To the gentleman on the commission, you have this extra packet, but until after our public hearing and until we get to the point of discussion, this is a moot point. So just it's for clarity's sake, we'll put it that way. All right, we will open our public hearing on site plan and special use permits, Article 25 of the zoning ordinance for amendment at 7:22. The notice for this meeting and public hearing was published in the Record Eagle on April 17th. All right, and at this point, Bob, do you have anything to add to what we're looking at with which pertains to our Article 25 amendment?
The Article 25 amendment, nothing. I do know that it's been reviewed by the attorney, and of course, they like to shuffle things around in an order that they think are appropriate, but I think the finished product, when you're done, will give better clarity and direction to the Planning Commission when performing site plan reviews that are not associated with the special land use and site plan reviews that are associated with the special land use, and basically distinguish the differences between the two.
And as per our earlier discussion, even if we went with the attorney's recommendations, that's within the scope of minor adjustments, correct?
Certainly.
So it could be, if we so choose, it could go to the board in either format. And then that would be up to them to distinguish from there. But, okay, thank you, Bob. I am going to now open it up for public comment for our public hearing. Anyone that is here specifically because of our public hearing, I'm going to ask that you sign in at the sign up sheet on the table under Article 25 zoning amendment. And I am going to divide up our public comment by for, against, and neutral. So anybody who has a public comment that they would like to make in favor of the zoning ordinance amendments that we have put forward, please make your way to the podium now. Okay, is there anyone here that would like to speak out specifically against the zoning ordinance amendment on Article 25? Okay, and is there anybody who has a neutral comment that isn't for or against, but something they would like to contribute?
Again, I'm Randy Melnick, resident of the township, and I guess I'm not sure how to break this down necessarily, but I did spend a little bit of time looking at your amended Article 25, and I have some comments that I wanted to share about that. I don't necessarily put them in for or against, but I think there are a number of areas that need more attention and more review. I don't know what the attorney's comments are. They might be similar to mine, but I guess in the first one, under application and fee, there's a lot of detail in there about how that process works. Apart from a couple of typos about having a hyphen in front of upon, and also the fact that there's mention of funds deposited with the treasurer in one place and not with the treasurer in other places. It's probably a minor kind of issue. I'm sure the attorney would have caught that. The bigger issue, I think, is with regard to the minimum fee of up to $2,500, which is required at the onset of a special use permit. It says that money is to contact and select necessary experts, receive a work proposal and estimate from the experts, and for the actual cost of the experts. That seems unusual to me in the sense that the steps involved with contacting them and getting a proposal and selecting them is pretty quick. It's not really much effort. Generally, consultants will have the ability, after working with the community, to offer a ballpark number of what they need for an escrow amount to review a plan based upon the complexity of what they see from the township. I guess a broader question I would ask, the question of who selects the necessary experts probably deserves some conversation. I don't know if there's been any conversation about that among the planning commission members, but it seems to be an issue. Under 25-2107, item G, there's a notice of public hearing required, and it says that we are good to notify townships of a proposed special use if the proposed special use is within a mile. So that would mean that we would be notifying adjacent townships of a special use permit application if they're within a mile of the border. And I'm trying to understand exactly what context that happens in. How do you, if we're sending something to Acme Township or Clearwater, and it's not really clear, of course, who offers the comments. Is it the township? Is it residents or what? So that's kind of an unusual requirement.
And what was the location of that?
It says a mile.
No, within the ordinance.
Oh,
That
it's
was-
252107, item G.
This is public hearing.
Okay, got it. Yes.
Okay. Moving on, I have these written out. I'll give you a copy of it. So that might be a little easier. I know it's kind of jumping around from sections. It's gonna be difficult. Under 252108, the hearing and decision, it says that anyone who receives a notice pursuant to 252107 may choose to submit material to the planning commission. It kind of implies that you have to get a notice in order to provide comment to the planning commission. That really, and people that get notices are of course within 300 feet. Anyone should be able to come to the planning commission meeting and offer comment on a proposed special use permit. Maybe that's what's intended, but there's room in there. It seems somewhat like you could interpret it a different way. So I think that deserves some clarification. I would, and under 252108, under the hearing and decision, I would consider some language that states that after the hearing and the decision, that there's a document prepared that identifies all the approval conditions and the findings of fact. And that is signed by the applicant and the township. So there is some agreement on what transpired, just so you're not relying on minutes and so forth. I think that's a good practice that I've seen in play elsewhere. 252111 says record of special use permit. And the language is that the notice of the special use permit shall be recorded with a property description in the Grand Traverse County Register of Deeds. I'm not really sure how that gets accomplished. If a special use permit's approved by the township, then that individual is supposed to go to the county Register of Deeds and record something. I'm not sure how that exactly works. It seems somewhat vague. Under 252113, when you amend a special use permit, which of course happens from time to time, it really doesn't provide a lot of detail to describe whether or not it's a major or a minor change in the special use permit. It seems to leave some discretion there, which is, I understand that, but I've seen other places where they would actually try to distinguish between a major and a minor amendment in a more specific way. For an example, a minor amendment might be something that does not include increasing the number of units, changing landscaping required, increasing the height or square feet of a building, or adding additional off-street parking spaces. There's ways to quantify what's a major change and a minor change. So it might be beneficial to have some additional language in that respect. 252114 says that it deals with the transfer of a special use permit. And a special use permit naturally does run with the land. It's not really something that you're granting to an individual person. It has really little to do with who owns the property. However, the section appears to make the original landowner responsible for transferring an SUP to a subsequent property owner. So I'm not sure how that's accomplished. How does a current landowner transfer the SUP, the SUP to an adjacent property owner? And then it also goes on to say that the original holder of the SUP would be responsible for if the future owner doesn't meet those conditions. That seems really difficult to implement. And then finally, 252116 says the expiration of a special use permit. Consider eliminating or editing the requirement that township gives notice to the property owner when an SUP expires. In other words, if you granted a special use permit to a property and they cease use of it, it's requiring, it seems, for the township to take some action to give them notice. That seems really like putting the onus on the township to identify that. It's somewhat of a heavy burden, I think, for the township to keep track of all that. And then I don't know how the township would actually know when all the land uses associated with an SUP are continuing or expiring or what. So and then it's not clear what happens if the township fails to provide that notice. So so I kind of took a deep dive into this, mostly because it's important. This is your process to describe and handle SUPs going forward. It's important that this be very clear and understandable, and try to leave as much discretion as you can aside, so that there isn't opportunities for developers to find wedges in things. Not all of them do, of course, but so anyway, I'll leave you with my written comments.
You found it.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone on the planning commission have any additional questions? We will have discussion shortly. Okay. We are going to close our public hearing at 7. Oh, yes. Do we have someone else?
We have a public.
Only if it is pertaining to Article 25, special use and special use permits and site plan review.
Pertaining to the ordinance 6. This is part of it.
Okay. Give it a shot.
Well, I wonder why when it's printed out, it always says draft.
Oh.
Something needs to clear that up. That's.
Agreed.
I'm very unclear of what's going on.
That was a decision that was made elsewhere. That's not at this body, at another body that also occupies these seats upon occasion. But I would strongly encourage you to take that comment and pass it on
Well, I have-
specifically to the township board, because
Well, I know it puts the planning commission. What
That's-
commission, I would think.
that is the body that put that label on our ordinance. That is the body that would have to take it off. We do not actually, as a planning commission, have control of the zoning of the website. So, yes, I agree, it's relevant, but kind of a hard spot to put anywhere. All right. And I will put that down as a neutral comment. Yes, probably what's on the website isn't the draft we're looking at right now either. Okay, I'm going to, what is it? It's 7:35. We're going to close our public hearing on zoning ordinance amendment.
82.
What is it?
It's 82.
82. Thank you. I can never remember which is which. 82 on Article 25, site plan review and special use permits. Okay, and we are going to now open our public hearing on classic equine. So gentlemen, if you want to shift gears, we're moving on to the equine vet clinic on M72. And this is a good example of one that was noticed to the neighboring township. So Acme was notified that we were doing something that required a special use permit very close to their border. Okay, the notice was printed for the special use permit for classic equine on April 17th in the Record Eagle. And my apologies, we are opening it at 7:36. All right. Bob, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you have, I'm going to give you first shot at it if you want to give us a brief introduction, and I believe there's also a representative here for the clinic.
Well, that was going to be my first question. Thank you very much. I was going to hope that a representative was there, but let me begin by giving just 2 minutes of education to start this with, because I know there have been questions from members of the public and the Planning Commission. how somebody can skip a preliminary site plan review and go direct to a final site plan review. Well, that option is left up to the applicant to request that, and it's given to the zoning administrator on whether to accept that request or not. A preliminary is just that. On larger scale developments, I always recommend it. And Classic Equine certainly wanted to go there, but they were prepared to do a final as well. So that's why we're here this evening, for a final site plan review as permitted in the zoning ordinance, not something that the applicant demanded, not something that the zoning administrator made up, but something that is permitted in the zoning ordinance to happen. So without further ado, yes, we have Classic Equine. It's a special use request in the commercial zone district at the very western border of Whitewater Township, bordering Acme Township, on the south side of M72, directly across from the casino area there. Again, public notices were published, as Kim said. 300-foot notices were sent out again in advance of this hearing as required. You have my staff report. I don't see any peculiarities or irregularities that immediately draw attention. I know that it always elicits great conversation with the Planning Commission when they're reviewing these, because each and every site plan review or special use you are going to get is different. I'll also interject before the applicant's representative takes the floor. Again, just the 30-second training blurb. Many communities have different levels of site plan review dependent upon the nature and the character of what they're looking at. But tonight's a perfect example of the site plan review portion for the special use during this public hearing, and the site plan review standards for the riding stable are identical, even though they're at opposite ends of the spectrum as far as impact on the community. So I will leave you with that. If you have any questions regarding my staff report, I will be on board as long as my internet holds up, and I hope that you will give your attention to the applicant's representative in the audience tonight.
Thank you, Bob. And sir, you are up. If you would introduce yourself to the rest of the commission.
Yes, my name is John Carriage. I'm a registered architect in the state of Michigan and have practiced in Grand Traverse area since 1989. I represent the applicant, Classic Equine, on the development of this parcel that's across the street from Turtle Creek. It's a, first of all, Classic Equine, it's a clinic, so it's not a surgery center. So it's more for evaluation. So, if someone's horse is injured, they can bring them in, evaluate them. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's not for surgeries on site. As Bob said, it's a C1 zoning. Currently, it's a vacant old orchard, partially old orchard, and then part of it's kind of scrub trees and stuff. The clinic will consist of one building, which is divided into approximately 3 different areas, about 1,000 square foot for the office, waiting, those kind of things. There's about 1,000 square foot for exam room. They have a little suite of stalls in that area. And then there's about, the biggest portion is around 2,500 square foot of a, I don't want to call it a barn. It's more of a place where they take horses to trot them around to look at what injury they might have or to evaluate them. So they're not keeping horses, as stalls as a barn, other than as part of the clinic. The upper level of this consists of about 800 square foot of some small, I think there's 3 efficiencies, which primarily they're going to be bringing the doctors up. And so if they got to evaluate a horse late, then the idea is then we have a small apartment for it. It's not for rentals. The building is going to be light frame construction, slab on grade, except for in the barn. And that's, typical riding arena sand and stuff. We met with MDOT. The frontage, the entry is basically centered on the parcel. So it's as far away, you know, from either side as we can. As you come in the entry, then it's kind of a loop drive all the way around the building. If initially we didn't have that and then it became apparent, you know, it'll solve a lot of problems if we do that, as well as it gives your fire department a nice ring around the whole building. Because part of it does come down a hill, so we'll clear that out. So there's a nice continuous maintained access around the building. The exterior appearance of the bar will, you know, pick up kind of, there's gonna be a nice little bit rustic entry, but then the rest of it's gonna be more rural character, nice shapes. You saw the elevation. It'll be a pretty building. The front will have some perimeter fencing, and then there will be additional fencing on the back portions per the ordinance. So everything we've done in this is basically right out of the ordinance. We've met all the setbacks from the front, on the sides and the rear. The building will be built to comply with Michigan Building Code, you know, for that requirement of type 5B construction. And so that'll comply with the building code and also fire safety. And like I said, we had input from MDOT on that entrance. Any stormwater will be handled under Grand Traverse County soil erosion retention. So, and that's indicated on the site plan. Typically, I like to make that stuff pretty and not, you know, some pit with a fence around it, but it's not that much that we're dealing with, so we can do it gently. The water will be through Grand Traverse County Health Department well, and then the on-site septic system. The usage is quite minor. Like I said, they're going to have 2 to 4 employees here typically, and then they might be seeing a small number of patients each day, which drove the parking area. It really didn't amount to much. I think we have 9 or 10 spaces, but so it's not a high traffic use. It's not a continuous volume of people coming in. It is not a typical veterinary clinic, you know, it is equine. So it is for the horses. The landscaping on the site will be per the ordinance, you know, with the plannings per the schedule of those things. Any lighting on the site will be, you know, comply with full cutoff. I don't see a lot of it, but you know, typically you want some, enough for some security, some building mounted, but they'll all be the full cutoff lights. Again, I said we had provided that drive around for full perimeter access. Let's see. That, you know, so for the most part, I tried to stay totally within your zoning ordinance, not for the most part, for the whole thing. So, you know, because I know that zoning by right is the best way to go, but because of its just the nature being a veterinary clinic kicks it into the special use, but it complies with all your requirements. So I don't know if you ask me questions now or if you want to, however you want to do it.
We'll do a little bit now. Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions? While we have the availability to answers.
Yeah, so the circle going all the way around Brilliant, I'm assuming. Trailers in the horse trailer, right?
Yes.
Over there.
Yeah, so that part of the planning is how they come in off the highway, and then they have a very definite procedure where they pull up and walk the horses out and into the exam area, basically. And then those people might stay there during the exam. Then once it's done, depending on the determination, you know, either the horse is loaded up or they're, you know, sent to where they might, if they need surgery or something like that.
Which then kind of segues into my next question. Is there like going to be outdoor grazing area or hangout?
Not really. No, I asked the owner about that. I mean, he's not really developing the back portion of it. They don't really let them out grazing. So if this horses, they come in, they're injured, they're not sending them out to pasture. So they're assessed and then they're gone. So they're not, I mean, I don't know 100% if they're ever keeping a horse overnight. They have a few kind of like paddocks, you know, in the inside of it, but those are primarily to keep the horse there for evaluation.
But it fits within their purview.
Yeah, But the intent is not to have, 10 horses out back grazing. I mean, they could, but
Just curious. I
Yeah,
didn't
no.
see anything on there.
no, they, and I asked about that and it was basically, they're injured. We're not letting them walk around out back.
Does anybody else have any questions?
The efficiencies, those are just for staff on a.
Yeah, I just,
temporary-
and that was something that kind of percolated. And so I just, tonight I asked the owner, I said, so these are, for efficiencies. And that's what he said. He said, because what happens is he's down in Ada, I think. So he's like tonight, he's running to a call. So if it's call up here, he's running up here at, 8 PM and seeing a horse at 9 or 10 and then coming and he'll have, I don't know if I think he's gonna have 1 or 2 full-time guys, or they're gonna they're gonna work into it a little bit. But the intent is not to have 10 people. It's a very small staff. And so they just want to be able to have that available.
But it's not gonna be living quarters for the permanent staff.
No.
And are you going to be available for our discussion later as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do any other planning commissioners?
Oh, I have a-
Carl, you're up.
Seeing that efficiency apartment, and kind of glossed over that. I'm just a little bit worried that these could become rental apartments.
And I don't know how you could do that. I mean, he's saying that, no, that's not the intent.
Well, I know you're saying it's not the intent, but
I'm going
I don't
to
think,
cut it off right there, Carl. We'll discuss that when we get to the full
yeah.
planning commission
I
discussion.
mean, I don't think
That one
he's
will come
gonna
back
want to
up.
be worrying about renters in a professional clinic. I think it's very much.
Anything other than that?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Al, do you have any questions?
No.
All right. So it'll be at the end of our meeting, but it'll be before we're done.
Okay, just let me know.
Thank you so much.
All right.
It really helps to have questions answered. All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment from the general public. We are going to again divide individuals who would like to speak out in favor of the establishment of classic equine first. Do we have anyone in town hall that has a comment in favor of this? Okay. That works. Okay, do we have any comments on Zoom? Okay, do we have any comments against the establishment of classic equine? In-house. Do we have any comments on Zoom? Okay, and do we have any neutral comments or questions regarding classic equine? Either place? Okay, we're all set then. And we will close our public hearing on classic equine at 7:50. All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your input. We are going to move on now from our public hearings to our meeting minutes for the March 2nd and 11th meeting. Does anybody have any corrections, adjustments, comments, questions on our meeting minutes from way back in March?
I believe the approval of minutes, I believe the wrong date is there. It shows us approving the minutes of that meeting. I think we approved the minutes of the February meeting, didn't we?
Sorry, you mean in our March meeting minutes, it says that we're approving the wrong meeting minutes?
It's right under approval of minutes. This is a meeting of March 2nd,
Okay,
2022, and in the meeting, it says approval of minutes. Motion by Jacobson, second by Darrow to approve March 2nd, 2022. I think that should be February.
nice catch. You're correct. Oh, we just wanted to get ahead of ourselves and just approve them right now. Whatever Lois puts out, it'll be good.
Just approve it for the next 12 months.
No, I've seen some interesting things come through in minutes. All right. Thank you, Mike. That was a very good catch. Was there anything else? In the March 2nd, we'll take them one at a time. I did not have anything. Anyone else?
I believe that's it.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adopt the meeting minutes for February. was it second?
March.
No, it was March.
Sorry, the March meetings,
March
with
2nd,
whatever amendments you recommend.
March 2nd.
March 2nd, okay. That's what I mean, the adjustment. Do I have a motion to,
I'll make the motion to adopt the minutes from the March 2nd meeting with the correction.
as
made.
corrected? Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second. it.
Okay, I have a motion from Mike and a second from Carl. Any further discussion? Roll call when ready, Lois.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Keaton,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes.
Robo,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Okay, and we have our March 11th meeting minutes from later in the month. Any corrections, adjustments, or questions on that item?
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Anyone else? Any issues? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'd make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Al and a second from Mike to adopt as presented, correct?
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call when ready, Lois.
Keaton,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes,
Robo,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
beautiful. Motion on both has passed. And we will move forward. All right. Correspondence. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, if anyone sent a public comment that they had the intentions of making it into our packet that did not, please let me know. I made every effort to make sure that the various emails that were confidential and didn't want to go in and not confidential that did want, I tried to make sure all the correct ones were here. But if I somehow missed yours, please contact me and let me know so I can dig it up and include it next month. I don't know of any, or they'd be in here. But there was a lot spanning 2 months. It got a little hard to track. Okay. We will move on. All of those are published in your packet. You gentlemen have had an opportunity to read through them. Reports. Bob, are you still with us?
I am. Good evening.
Nothing like throwing you right on stage.
That's-
Your zoning administrator's report. What do you have for us this evening?
Well, it's just a brief oral report. Again, I apologize for my absence this evening, but at least I can be with you digitally, if nothing else. And I just want to ramble on about a few things that I keep hearing that I think it's important for the Planning Commission to jot down and be aware of. And I know you've heard it probably at least 12.5 times, if not more, is I continue to get calls on short-term rentals, even though Whitewater Township Planning Commission may not be thinking about them and you may not consider them a nuisance at this time. There are many people that are inquiring about the availability and whether they can get away with it in Whitewater Township. Another call that I keep getting continuously now associated with short-term rentals, of course, has to do with something that's not on your agenda tonight, but everybody hears about site condominiums, and I have gotten numerous phone calls, I've gotten numerous emails, I've gotten some what I consider some very genuine inquiries, and it's tough from a zoning perspective and even a planning commission perspective to be the teacher or the knower of all and trying to educate everyone, because we take it upon ourselves to not learn as we go, but we have a monumental task just to administer the ordinance as it's written. And it wasn't Whitewater Township that said, hey, let's have site condominium development opportunities. And many people are confused when they hear the word condominium. They think high rises or something like that, when it's nothing more than a form of ownership, not to be, in my opinion, confused with planned unit developments. That is an entirely different type of development with different regulations. Long story short, let's cut to the chase. Site condos are on everyone's mind in the future because we do have an active application that got them to a preliminary site plan review. At that time, I requested and the Planning Commission approved the $2,500 escrow before moving forward. That has not been done yet, but based upon my latest conversation with the developer and representative of the developer, it will happen. As we all know, it turned from winter to spring rather rapidly, and they are now able to get on the property and do more evaluations of the topography. And I know people want to see this done and they're worried about the topography and wetlands. And I want to assure everyone, as the Planning Commission should as well, if you read Article 28 on site condominiums, all that will be required, to come forth and be brought out in public meetings, just like we're having this evening. A site condominium is not a quick review process. It's an extensive one. It's going to take several meetings, I am sure. And again, just to give myself a little clarity and the Planning Commission some clarity, because I was just thinking back, I've been doing this 22 years, and over those 22 years, I've worked in 22 different communities, and I have yet to find a perfect master plan and a zoning ordinance where everything is right in line where it needs to be. There are always deficiencies. There will always be deficiencies, depending on how each community interprets and wants to move forward through the implementation process. But long story short, I can't divulge the contents, but I am confident that Whitewater Township going forward will administer the ordinance precisely as it's written regarding future site condominium projects. Until that time, that's the only choice we have. We have site condominium development regulations in our ordinance. That's what we'll use. But I know, Kim, you had asked me a couple months ago and even a month ago, what can we do to get the word out and to maybe help members of the general public, the Planning Commission, anybody that wants more information on this type of development. And again, I'd like to recommend a couple websites. Networks Northwest has an abundance of information. Michigan State University Extension has an abundance of information. I actually have a personal library with articles in it that I've shared to a couple members of the public, not meaning to say this is the way it's done in Whitewater Township, but more of a general scope of what a site condominium is, what a planned unit development is, how a community, not necessarily Whitewater Township, goes through the review process. I don't know what else to say. I don't want to defend more than I can right now. We have a zoning ordinance to administer as it's written. The township has basically been told in writing that a citizens group, and they'll take legal action against us if necessary. So I think that it's incumbent upon the township, the Planning Commission, myself, and the board to do everything as is currently written in the ordinance. That's all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. All
And if
right.
I interrupt later, I'm sorry. Another thought will come to mind.
Fair enough. We have it that you have a slight reserve on your zoning administrator's report.
Yeah. Okay.
Chair's report. I have been requested to take, we've had a couple individuals in the township that have been trying to track who has what amongst the planning commissioners. So as part of my chair report, I would like to get some input from you gentlemen. Just an update. I was asked to do a quick survey, and this is the best place that it fits in terms of what resources you currently have in your possession there are 5 that I came up with. So I'm gonna do a quick show of hands or however you want to do it. Who on the planning commission has a hard copy of the master plan? A printed off copy? Mike, Carl, do you gentlemen have one? And or do you prefer to use it online?
I like the hard copies.
You'd like a hard copy? Okay, so we need a hard copy of the master plan for Al and for Alex. Okay, who of you have a hard copy of the zoning ordinance that is currently in effect that it'll say draft, but we know it isn't? Mike, you have a copy, I have a copy.
I'd like a copy too.
You'd like a copy? Carl, do you have one and or do you want one?
Zoning,
Uh.
what zoning ordinance?
Sorry. This bad boy,
Oh.
Whitewater Township's entire
Yeah.
zoning ordinance,
Oh, all of them.
the whole thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You have a copy,
I'd
okay.
like a copy.
And,
You'd
or
like a copy.
you'd like a copy?
Yes, I don't.
Okay, that's that.
As
Big difference. Okay, so we have, and I understand you all have access to this online, but it is my sincere desire to make sure that everyone that wants a hard copy has one that they could pull off the shelf when they can't sleep at night to get back to sleep. All right, who has a copy of our bylaws, which are the laws that we write that self-govern our planning commission? We went over them in January, but not all of you were here in January. So
I don't think I kept that copy. I had that copy from that meeting, but I don't think I kept it.
okay. I have a copy digitally, but who here would like, what I like to do is just stuff it in the back of my zoning ordinance. So when I have a question, I have a quick go-to.
I'll take a copy.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
so one copy of bylaws for everyone. Okay. And here's a good one. It has been stated repeatedly that every member of the planning commission should have a copy of the employee guidebook, the handbook for all employees in Whitewater Township. I've never seen one. Has anybody?
I was gonna say, I've never even heard of it.
No, I've been here for ages. They've never been given out, but I just figured I'd ask just in case. It doesn't end up being very relevant very often, but upon occasion. Okay, so that would be 5 copies of the employee handbook. All right, and the Michigan Guide to Planning and Zoning. It's about this big, spiral bound,
Green.
and green or cream, depending on which edition you have. You have
I
a
have
copy, Mike?
copy.
Carl, you were given a copy,
I don't.
and Alan, Alex, you do not, correct? Okay. That was my guess, because you haven't been here that long and they haven't ordered them very recently. Okay, and I'm gonna say an extra copy of all of the above in hopes that extra 2 copies of all of the above in hopes that we get 2 new members, at least 1. All right, the township board's gonna be back up to 5 members, so maybe we'll be able to get a township board rep, which we haven't had in a year and a half.
I was kind of hoping the same thing.
Yes, most definitely. And we have 5 members, short of swearing in, we have 5 members of the board now. All right, so that's my report. We're short on some copies of some critical items. The Township Guide to Planning and Zoning is, it's not the rules, it's not the law, but it is a good reference for what you do first and what order for things like zoning ordinance amendments and some of the background and history behind specifically Michigan planning and zoning law. So we will get those copies out to you as soon as we can get them ordered. And I will move on. We don't have a township board representative, so they have no report. But Carl, did the ZBA have any activity in the last, 3 months?
The zoning, no,
Zoning Board of Appeals?
no,
Okay.
just had the one meeting in January,
Okay,
just kind of to review the bylaws.
okay. So you just had you haven't had anything else come before you. Perfect. That's what we needed to know. All right, we are going to move on to unfinished business, and I'm going to redirect. We are at 8:06. We're making it. I'm going to redirect everyone down to new business A with a minor correction. I apologize again. I forgot to adjust that at the beginning of the meeting. This got carried over from an earlier text. This is not a preliminary site plan review. This is a final site plan review for the Salianos, hopefully, barn on Lossy Road. It is a horse barn. You were given Bob's report and the pertinence for it. If they had a house there, it would require no review at all by the planning commission. It would have been approved as an accessory structure, but they're putting the horse barn up before the house. Or if it was, you know, a few minor adjustments. Does anyone have any questions or concerns on the proposed construction of the horse barn?
Yeah, I have the same, there is a, I believe, efficiency apartments upstairs.
That was a typo that was corrected in our latest packet. Bob missed one of his notes when he reused his form from the veterinary clinic and went to the Salianos barn. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Cianciolo.
Sanciello, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sanciello's barn does not have apartments upstairs. And you can see that on the blueprint, but that was, you're not the only one that caught that. That's what I was like, wait a minute, there's nothing, no. All right, any other questions?
Yep. Can I make just a couple comments if I may, please?
Bob, you're up.
All right. First of all, I don't think I could have said it any better than you. If I would have had the opportunity to review this administratively, I certainly would have. And that kind of lends back to, I like to throw training in wherever I can. And it's something that the Planning Commission can think about in the future about what level of site plans can the zoning administrator review without Planning Commission input. And although we do have a section in Article 25 that discusses, you know, accessory buildings and such, this is a principal permitted use listed as a riding stable, a permitted use in the zoning district. And I had to scratch my head a couple times reading Article 25 as it kind of throws a couple double negatives in the sentence of what I can do. But basically it's single family homes and accessory buildings incidental to those single family homes. And as the chair mentioned, there's no single family home there yet. So it's not customarily accessory and incidental to. And long story short, it's subject to site plan review by the Planning Commission. And again, it's here for you and my staff report. I try to be as brief as possible. Again, it's a site plan review. It's not a special use. And hopefully when we amend Article 25, again, you'll add some clarity and distinguish between the site plans and special use standards. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for Bob? And I believe we have family online, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Gentlemen?
in person.
Okay. All right. Did you have something you wanted to present to us, or are you available for questions?
I'm available.
Either. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about the barn, proposed barn structure or usage?
No problem with it. So,
I just have one question. I'm assuming that you have staff and or family or someone in the area that will be caring for the horses, since you don't have a primary use and a residency there. Is that the case or?
Yep, that's the case.
Okay. I understand you don't have to be right there, but just making sure. All right. No further questions from anyone? Okay. I would entertain a motion. We've been granted no cause for concern in the staff report. It's like I said, if there was a house sitting there, if there was a mobile home sitting there, there would have been no review. So, you know, things we take into consideration. We are looking at this because it is the first use on the property since agricultural farming.
I'd make a motion, we approve it to.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. I have a motion by Al and a second from Mike. And that's to accept as proposed?
Yes.
Okay. Any additional restrictions? As proposed.
As proposed.
Correct.
Mhm.
Opposed, yeah.
Perfect. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. I think we already covered it pretty much. Lois, roll call when ready.
Roll call.
Yes.
Keaton,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes,
All right. And the weather just broke, so you should be all set for getting your dirt work done. As soon as Bob can get that paperwork to you. So my apologies for the delay due to our lack of quorum. We were finally able to get everybody at the same place at the same time and take care of it for you. So I hope the project goes well. Right. All right, we are going to move forward. Bob, is there anything that you need from us on that?
Only a copy of the minutes when they are available, and I will tell the planning commission the same thing I told the applicant, Miss Cianciolo. Basically, when the planning commission approves a site plan and or special use, our ordinance doesn't specifically state it, but that's kind of my marching orders to issue the land use permit based upon any comments, conditions, or anything that you throw in there. So I would fully expect to have her land use permit to her first thing in the morning.
That sounds beautiful, Bob.
Great, Bob. My husband will be there to pick it up.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Eileen.
You
Thank
might
you.
have wanted to give it time, Bob. All right. Okay, gentlemen, next on our agenda is Article 25 Site Plan Review Discussion. Let's see. All right, and I will tell you, it's on here twice because it was listed as two separate documents when it went in for public hearing. Along the way, administratively, it got clumped into one. It's the same topic and both are mentioned, so it's still structurally works just fine. The only reason I did not combine the two documents together is when I went to make adjustments, I found that our consultant was using software that was not compatible with anything that I could get my hands on. So I actually had to recreate both of the documents, and I did not have time to get it set for public hearing. I did not have the ability to combine them all together. The thought was we were going to try to get it done as quickly as possible last month, which didn't happen, but that is why you have it on two separate documents. It will be placed on one document now that we have copies that can be adjusted and altered to go forward to the board. What you see before you here is the response from the township's attorney. Now, this went to publication for public hearing 3 weeks before our last meeting, but the board decided to send it to the attorney Thursday. So in all fairness, they did a phenomenal job turning it around in just a couple of days. I got the draft of their review last night. It had some issues. And I was able to contact them even after hours. They got back to me and all here for me this morning. That being said, I fully acknowledge none of you have seen this before you walk in. I've done a review. I don't find really much of any substantive change. However, I also acknowledge you gentlemen have not seen this document. So we have two ways that we can go moving forward. And I'm going to put it entirely up to you. We can move forward and make a recommendation and send our document to the township, and then they can do what they want with the attorney's recommendations. We can pause, take a look at the attorney's recommendations, and have time to actually review and read it. And then vote on it next month, and then decide what we want to do with it then. I'm not comfortable myself reading it here at the meeting and then trying to process the attorney's recommendations. But I see that as the two most likely paths forward. Or we can say we're gonna do the attorneys, but I'll vote no because I'm not gonna pass forward anything that I haven't actually read.
I'd like to have an opportunity to look at it, read it, and then we could decide if there's any changes that we would want.
There is nothing that says that we have to make a decision at the meeting where we hold the public hearing. So we can make minor adjustments. In fact, unless it's a major adjustment, like who it applies to,
Mhm.
we don't have to hold another public hearing, even if we make changes, provided they are not substantive. And I have not found anything substantial in their recommendations. Most of it is just they rearranged everything. But that's the planning commission, that seventh chair that we're supposed to have, that is our board liaison, is supposed to be our liaison also with the attorney. So without that, this is a symptom of not having that additional member sitting here. So you would prefer to give us some time to read through it?
Yeah.
I would
Carl?
like to read through it also.
Absolutely.
Okay. I wasn't going to speak for you, but I had no intention of voting for something I haven't read. Or sending something forward that might need some adjustments. So I'm going to recommend that, let me see. We really don't need a motion. We do also have the comments from public hearing.
Correct.
So you may want to take a look and you may find that the attorneys addressed all of them, or some of them, or none of them. Some of the typos they did catch. A lot of what they had changed and addressed was changes in this should be capitalized, that shouldn't, things like that. And bluntly, some typos from my having to regenerate the document, cut and paste sentence by sentence kind of thing. It wasn't a pretty picture. I will give you a brief primer on this information. The initial document that I got from the attorney, I couldn't even read it. And it was a formatting issue between computers. They were real good about getting stuff back to me, but they have provided, at my request, a clean copy of what it would look like if we took 100% of their recommendations and changed everything to what they're suggesting. That's what this copy is. This copy is a red line version of what they've moved or adjusted or altered and where they put it. So if you want to know what they changed, this is the one that's supposed to give you that. And then this final one, I asked them if they could please provide us with a one word, one sentence. I'm not looking for the legal precedent behind it, but just why they're proposing a change. This lacks the clarity to stand up in court. One sentence. And they have gone through, and the more substantive things that they have changed, they have given us a brief explanation of why they are suggesting that that item should be altered. So there's additional pages in the back of actually all of our communication back and forth with the attorney on this item. You really only need the top 3 pages, gives you their recommendations for why things needed to be altered as they were proposing. So hopefully that will give you what you need to know to review these, and I will put it back on the agenda for next month. Any other questions or comments on this one? We will move on then. Next item on our agenda is our discussion of classic equine special use permit. That is the one other thing I think we really need to get through this evening, because there are real people that are really waiting to break ground. So if we have something to say, now's the time for us to say it.
If this is the as-built, to me, it looks like a very nice job.
It is a beautiful building. So, okay. Carl, I believe you had a question that we didn't discuss, so I'm going to pick up right with your comment first, which was on the apartments upstairs.
Correct.
There was some discussion of the apartments. It struck me the size, because they're efficiency apartments. And previously, that has not been something we've done in this township. That was a new item that was added here. It was run by the attorney and they made the determination that because the building meets all the standards, this is in addition to the base building. So efficiency apartments in addition to the core building, which is a commercial enterprise, was allowed. There is no restriction in their permitting. Their intention is for owners and employees to use, which makes sense because I'm sure from time to time they will have horses that come in that need to be transported or sick and may occasionally stay overnight, I would assume. And they need to have a place where staff can stay. But I want everybody to be aware, there's no restriction on whether or not they could rent out those apartments, or if it changed, if the building changed uses. Those are still lawful apartments that could be rented. An efficiency apartment is, even if it's not a dedicated staff for security, it's one of the cheapest passive forms of security a commercial establishment can have, is just having people nearby that deter anyone messing with it. So there is a benefit to any commercial establishment to have that mixed use type of item, but this will be the first mixed use establishment that has gone in Whitewater Township. So I don't know if that answers your question or if you have more questions about it. So now it's fair game.
No, it's just, if it is permitted, then.
Yeah.
I was just concerned this might open the door to other businesses doing, putting some in where they're not now, or creating some new, low-cost housing thing that we haven't planned for. And currently not.
It is permitted as a mixed use in our commercial district,
All right.
but it's not something that you typically will change an existing business for. It's a lot easier in their circumstance where they're building the building with this as an intent. It's a lot easier to incorporate
Okay.
in that formatting.
You couldn't stipulate that it had to be used by the staff, could you? And that would be like a security blanket that you can't rent it because they're not staff. I don't know if we have the authority to do that.
I don't know if we have the authority. I would want to have Bob run that past the attorneys. I could say I personally would not be in favor of that because things and circumstances change. And even there's a benefit to the business potentially, even if it isn't staff that's staying in that apartment, of just always having someone there. You'll find this not as much in Traverse City. In a lot of areas, you'll find storage complexes, like the storage condos we have down here. In a lot of places, they will put in an apartment with them because then there's always someone or the potential that someone could be there at any time. It is the beauty and risk of a mixed use establishment where you are combining residential and a commercial usage.
So we couldn't make that a condition that it can't be rented out.
I don't believe so. But Bob, are you still around? No, Bob is gone. So we could call and check.
I was gonna ask.
I personally have no problem with it, but
Because I can see if they have a horse that's, really sick and needs to be attended to all night, you're gonna need a couple people there, one probably to take care of them and one to sleep. And then, especially if somebody has to be with him all the time.
if you're taking turns, yeah.
Yeah, so, I can certainly see the need to have one, an apartment for them.
My biggest concern would be if the building ever changes uses, then the possibility for the place to be a rental is open.
But yet it would be the 3 apartments upstairs. It would not be the entire building.
But we don't have the authority to make that conditional, do we?
We allow mixed use in our commercial district. So I'm not an attorney, but I do not believe that is.
But
within our purview to say how someone could use a lawful use. It is a lawful use.
Okay, all right, yeah.
But is there in the ordinance, the definition of a, apartment, you have an efficiency apartment, I don't know what that means exactly, as opposed to being different from a regularly rented apartment?
And apartments and apartments and apartments.
Is there a size difference, equipment difference as far as, bathrooms, water?
The only size restriction, well, all of that will be governed by construction code.
Okay.
So a lot of that's already going to be restricted. They are probably going to have to be held to a higher standard because they are in a mixed use building. So the commercial codes are going to also extend up into that portion of the building. So they're going to be built in all likelihood at a higher standard than a standard residential apartment would be. Does that sound right,
That
Mike?
sounds-
Yeah.
sounds-
Commercial code's always harder than residential code. And it's a lawful use, so I don't see that being
Okay,
something that we can restrict.
Yeah.
Let me pull this up real quick. It is a permitted use under our special use permits. Let's see, and you're not the first one to bring up this question. It's in our commercial code. Give me just a second. Okay, it is 8.11, uses permitted by special use permit. So if this was an established business and they wanted to add apartments, it would still be a special use and they still would have to have come back to us. It all fits under one special use because it's one newly established building. Dwelling units, which are part of a commercial unit, such as a second-story flats or apartment units, are a use permitted by special use permit.
sounds good.
So,
So just for the record, let's say they did want to rent it out.
it's lawful to do so.
There's really no disadvantage to, I mean, we're not. It's 3 apartments, so there's whatever.
It's not 325.
Yeah, yeah.
The building isn't set up for that. The business doesn't want the general public walking through their business to get upstairs. So the building isn't set up for that.
It's definitely an auxiliary
Yeah.
side use also that happens to be housed in the same building.
I think the biggest concern is down the road, if the building ever changes hands or uses, is there anything we can do to keep it the way it is? But it sounds like it's legal to do that, and if a new owner takes over, then
Mhm.
that's how that is.
Well, and short-term rentals being all the concern, there just aren't that many people that are going to want to rent an apartment over an equine clinic
Right.
for their vacation.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
practically speaking. If so, they're going to be other equine people that are here for the equine festivals where it's their thing. Not in terms of legality, but in terms of practical everyday use. That's not on most people's checklist for housing. But, it's before the board. Any other concerns? It can be delayed. I'm hesitant to delay it because this is one that has people waiting to make a determination.
I don't see any reason to delay. I mean, we had some
Okay.
questions and I think we've answered them.
Okay.
Yeah,
In my
I don't,
opinion, I don't think we need to delay.
I agree with Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
More ships
Yep.
coming.
Yeah.
Might have a sick horse.
Yeah.
Well, and right now, everyone's transient.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with horses, but you have to call the guy and hope you can, he's
Yeah.
in your part of the state at the moment. So an equine clinic is not a bad contribution to our greater up north region, somewhere to go when you have an emergency. And we're having more and more horses, especially on this side of town. A huge influx. So I would entertain a motion. We will need, as a special use permit, we will need findings of fact to send to the board. But I would start with a motion to forward this to the board, or we can start with findings of fact, your approval, your suggestion. I'm assuming, do we have a tentative leaning towards approving?
Definitely, I do, definitely.
All right, so let's move forward to findings of fact. I'm open to contributions, but whereas, what I have is whereas the establishment of classic equine in our commercial district supports the compact nature of our commercial district. It is within the perimeter of what we have designated as commercial. Whereas it is supportive of the rural character of our community. And whereas it does not pose a challenge to the health, safety, and welfare of surrounding properties.
I would agree
That
with
we
all of
hereby
that.
agree the special use permit. Is there any others that should be in there?
Meets all other requirements of the Whitewater Township.
Yes, thank you.
zoning.
It meets all, I knew there was one I was missing. Meets all of the requirements of the Whitewater Township zoning ordinance. So those four: compact nature of the commercial district, supports the rural character of our community. It is not in conflict with the health, safety, and welfare of surrounding properties. And it is in compliance with the requirements of the Whitewater Township zoning ordinance. And unofficially, we like the fact that it's going in. That one isn't official. All right. Do you have those, Lois?
Yep.
All right, and I need a motion. I can't call for a vote without a motion.
I'd make a motion that
Cart
we
before the
approve it.
horse. All right.
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Al and a second from Mike. Any further discussion? Okay, so we are voting on approval of classic equine without additional restriction, correct?
Yes.
Okay. As proposed. Lois, roll call when ready.
Based on the stated findings of fact as proposed, based on the stated findings of fact. We got to toss those words in.
Yes. Don't tell me you hit delete.
No, there we go. Darrow,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Keaton,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes.
and Robo.
Yes.
Awesome. We're caught up with April. Oh, anyway. All right. Next agenda item, and congratulations. Hope everything goes great. We look forward to it. Master plan review status. Just looking at this as a quick review. We currently do not have a planner that we're working with. That is something that I'm working a little bit with Bob to take a look and see what other options we might have available to us. We can move forward, schedule open houses and things like that. We can work on finding another consultant to work with us that is more willing to work with us.
Mhm.
What do you guys want to see going forward with this? I guess I just want to get a little
Yeah.
bit of input.
The gentleman there
Yes,
is the
I-
one I wanted to see if he could.
You have been targeted.
Yeah, see if he could work with us. He seemed to, I think he said he had 44 years experience in this. So I mean, boy, that's a wealth of knowledge to draw from. I think we should use it.
And he's part of our community.
Yes, and he lives
That's,
here.
I think, the biggest.
That's the biggest thing.
Get back with Bob.
Yeah, no
We'll get
pressure.
we'll get a sit down set up.
No pressure, but we
We need you.
think a lot of it.
You obviously have support from the
I
area.
had,
So, yes, Carl.
I had a discussion with Ron Pop that he had been in contact with another company.
Mhm.
And we'd been to a well, what was it called? Well, it's a seminar on how to avoid problems. I've been there a few months ago, and that he had contacted them about working with us. And have you heard anything about that? I don't know.
I saw some initial standards and guidelines. My personal impression is they're more of a write it for you and send you a copy type of a firm, as opposed to a sit down and work with you type of a firm.
Okay. No, I just didn't.
And they were, by comparison to other things we were looking at, they were hideously expensive. Truly. Extraordinarily expensive.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know.
But
if
it was
Ron
more a
had-
hands-off, we'll write you an ordinance.
Oh,
But
yeah.
my impression from
Yeah, I just
the
wondered
literature
if,
that I
if that
looked
had,
at.
you know, Ron had moved forward with that or not.
But there've been a couple other names that have been
Oh,
put forward with our proposal, as several people pointed out, for Bob and I to have a sit down
Okay, fine.
with the gentleman here. But yeah, do we have a consensus that we want someone to find someone who's willing to work with us and work with our editing
I think it would be a good idea.
on what we have? Okay.
I do too.
And the changes we need to go over the goals. There are a couple minor items that need to be added. Our master plan is not hideously out of alignment. It has a couple of spots where we just didn't mention something
Mhm.
in as direct a manner as possible.
Well, my
And
main,
it's just the review of our goals is a good thing that we should be doing.
well, I don't know. I have read all the previous questionnaires online, the 2009 questionnaire about the master plan. I read the one on marijuana, the one on Parks and Rec. I've read them all, but the one from 2009, I was kind of surprised at a couple of things in it. But I don't think, you know, we certainly do need to update it. We've had a little bit of difference in our population in the area, but yeah, I was surprised that they didn't want to redevelop downtown Williamsburg. I mean, they just said no. And, you know, but I don't think there's a big difference today in what, you know, the people, we need to know that. We need to have the questionnaires out to the people to tell us what they want for the future and then update it from there. I don't, you know, from reading that, I, you know, was surprised what people's, not really totally surprised, just a couple of things I was. And
Well, one thing that helps put that survey in perspective is it went out and was responded to just prior to the 08 crash.
Yeah.
So the answers that we got back were before the
Mhm.
bottom dropped out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, I bought my land, I bought 2 days before the crash. It was not worth the same a week later. I assure you.
But we've had.
So things did change their perspective even before that
Yeah.
was in print.
The major perspective change,
it's
I think, is
interesting.
people have been home and they want to work from home now.
The pandemic has changed things again,
So
and it has made internet even more important. That's another item that we do not address in our master plan.
Yeah.
That is a big issue now. That used to be a minor inconvenience, but it is more than a minor inconvenience now. I've walked away from property because it didn't have and could not feasibly ever receive internet in the next, who knows how long. Starlink didn't exist when I walked away. We could not get it by phone, by cable, by tower. It was just a flat no.
So the
Um,
bottom line
it
then
happens.
is we need somebody that's part of the community, not just some wherever.
I think we need someone that's gonna walk us through the process, not tell us what we're going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, that's a primary thing for me. We've already gone through a large portion of it. We did pay Grove and paid him very well for the services that he provided. So there is nothing unlawful about us utilizing the updated data that he provided. He was very well compensated for it. So that's one of the things we needed to either remove the data or update it. We have the option of updating it. It has been available and it is available to us.
You know, it's nice
So-
too, Kim, if we had the gentleman there, he could look at that and help us with that
Yes.
to see.
And we're still gonna need to do some community outreach, especially as we get a draft together.
Mhm.
But the other thing that was on our to-do list, it was on our to-do list before we hired a planner, back before the pandemic, when we started this process, was community outreach. So the other thing that we had done was set up community town hall meetings. We were doing them for an hour, just like our special meeting tonight. We started having town hall meetings quarterly before our regular meetings so that we could have two-way dialogue. We could be asked questions and try to answer them. Because I think everyone on both sides of the room can find public comment process nerve-wracking.
So Carl, can I ask you, because
go ahead.
I'm not familiar with what you read, so the stuff that you read from the community, people wanted to develop the downtown Williamsburg area? Is that what I understand?
There was, as I read back through it and recall a few things, there was, one thing was, one of the things, there was a big issue over a proposal for a large fire department. And that was really hammered. The other proposal was to clean up the downtown area and put in maybe some boutique kind of shops for the tourists in the summer, and maybe a flower shop, and there was those proposals, and the township people just said no. They were not interested in doing that. I think there was maybe some, interest in maybe some restaurants, things like that. But, if you go through and read that, the people were pretty definite. And they wanted this to remain a rural community, low density agricultural area. There was one comment about the gateway to Traverse City. I don't think that was well received.
What were they calling the downtown district, the downtown area?
The village is what they usually refer
Was
to
it the
it as.
village?
But are they talking about this side of the highway or the other side of the highway?
Most people don't make a distinction.
Because this was the original town.
This was
Yeah.
downtown. This was the
Yes,
village.
this was
Yeah.
downtown, and that across the highway was later,
Yeah,
after this kind
yeah,
of petered out.
Okay, here's my proposal. We build the biggest walls we can along M72. Plant a bunch of trees, take down all the signs so that when people drive by, they don't even know we're here. They just keep on going to Traverse City. How's that for a gateway?
I can show you an ordinance that was written to that effect.
Yeah, they tried that.
Actually, they made it, nothing could be within sight of the freeway, of the highway.
Really?
Yeah, what you're saying that is an outrageous joke.
They tried it.
They tried to put it in that nothing could be built within sight of the highway
Wow, 500
Yeah.
feet.
Wow.
500
Wow.
feet.
on either side.
I'd be happy just to not have people doing 70 miles an hour down the street.
Well, it was just fine until they repaved it.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't make it to 17
All right,
before.
I gotta check.
Oh, goodness.
yeah, no,
Um,
the big difference now is the pandemic and people working from home. That's going to be a fad. I think in summary, I have family members that say they won't go back to the office.
There's a lot of people
But-
who will not go back.
But when you don't have a job and you're not gonna be able to find one, I think you're gonna want to go back to the office.
But when you can't find employees, you're gonna let them stay home and
Well,
work.
yeah, right.
Yeah, no, big corporations are actually downsizing their office buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
People are gonna go.
But there's another side to that is if you're an up and coming person, you need what they call FaceTime. If you're working from home, they don't know you. And when, positions open up, a lot of times they want to see how people react with other people and.
Some industries are gonna adapt to it better than others.
So we're gonna have to, get that information from the people that live here. Because, high-speed internet, that's a real big thing now.
There's only so many people who can work from home. I can't work from home.
Nope.
Kind of work I do, it doesn't happen from home. Okay, and there's lots of people just like that.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen. I think that gives us an idea of where we're going with it. Yes, we still want assistance walking us through the process and walking with us, not, yes, not dictating. I am going to propose that we give at least a couple of minutes to the last item on the list under new business B, Article 1 preamble. And I will give you a quick run through on why. Yes,
Because I handed my
agenda?
agenda over. Number 5, Article 12, is that, did I just type something wrong?
Number 5, Article 12.
What's
Article 12 is on there, Article 5 is on there. But we moved new business B when we adjusted our agenda above Article 12.
And Article 12 actually was already addressed.
It was addressed in the last meeting.
Okay.
And the
So I
reality
just
is,
wanted to make sure that
I knew we
didn't
were never
type
gonna make it through
twice.
all those, but they're still on we're working on it list. This one I wanted to bring forward, we did finish one, so I wanted to bring this one forward just for everybody to take a look at. Or to finish, but primarily to take a look at. This is our Article 1 of our zoning ordinance. And here is the reason I am bringing it forward. It currently refers to a law that is no longer in existence as the authority for our zoning.
That should be corrected.
It's a very simple change to refer to the proper law that gives us the authority to have zoning in Whitewater Township. So at the top, that's simply saying what we're doing. And that is a set paragraph that you will find at the beginning. Pull up Calcasta, pull up East Bay. It will be almost verbatim, if not verbatim, on that list, because that is what planning and zoning does in a township. This is just now citing the correct law. Below that, I have short title. It's the same basic thing. This is known as the Whitewater Township zoning ordinance and will hereby be referred to as this ordinance, also a standard clause. Purpose, the fundamental purpose of this ordinance is to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of Whitewater Township residents and visitors, to implement the purposes enumerated in MCL 125, in order to implement the goals, principles, and recommendations set forth in the master plan. So those are 2 goals right there, or 3 goals, actually. And then if you look at other ordinances, you will find I have below that. We could also add any of the following. This is kind of what I have under 1.1 is kind of what we need to have in there. Any of the other stuff is optional, or we can eliminate purpose entirely. So if I can get input from you gentlemen, we can take this to public hearing, or I can get it cleaned up for us to propose it for public hearing next month. This is on my checklist of things that we really need to address, like referring to the correct law in our ordinance.
Right.
And it's going to take time to go to the attorney because he's going to want to rearrange everything anyway. So we might as well plan for that. So we could stop right at 1.0 short title. We can add purpose. Those are kind of like the minimum that I thought we should have. We could add any of the other purposes listed below that if someone felt that one of those others should be added to the list. Any input?
So adding. Moving forward, public, then it goes to.
Actually, it would go to the attorney before the public hearing is a better way to do it.
Okay.
With our missing table, it just didn't get forwarded last time. I don't want to deal with that again. It's, if I have to scream at the township board meeting, new ordinance, send it this time. I will try to do whatever I can to make sure it actually, they put it on the website. It was on, it's been on the one we looked at today, 25, it's been on the website for a month and a half. And individuals all around this building have had access to it for about 7 weeks. But it didn't go to the attorney till Thursday. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. If this looks good to you, I think it's great if you just under 1.1 purpose, and then we don't need anything else. If anybody feels like any of those other purposes should be added to why we're doing zoning in the township, or if anybody feels like one of those needs to be removed. Otherwise, I would like to at least get this cleaned up and maybe sent to the attorney. It doesn't have to be approved for public hearing. If we have a draft, I can send it to the attorney for their evaluation and rearranging. So I just need to know what's being added to it before we send it out.
I kind of like just leaving it at your 1.1 purposes and not adding any of the other stuff. If we were to add anything to conserve natural resources, would be about the only thing that I see there that I would push forward.
Okay. Alex, you're going two different directions. What would you like to see included in this? And you said you're okay with getting it on to the attorney.
Yeah, I'm actually.
Okay, do you want anything below also added? Okay,
I'm good with it.
okay, so stopping right after purpose.
I
Carl?
agree.
So stop, okay. Sounds like the consensus is we'll stop right after purpose. You're okay with that, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to forward this to the attorney for review.
Make the motion to forward this to the attorney for review.
Okay, I have a motion by Mike, a second by Alex to forward to the attorney for review. You know, we have a lot of things we need to address in this ordinance. We had put things on hold because recodification was supposed to be going on. It's not going anywhere, so we got to get back to it because it has to get fixed. You know, we can only do what we can do. We can't take tasks that belong to the board and make them do them. We can only do what's in our purview, and fixing our authority, it's one of those things we can do. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Other than what I just added in there? All right, Lois, roll call when ready.
Robel,
Yes.
Mangus,
Yes,
Keaton,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes,
okay. Motion carries. We don't need a motion really to send it to the attorney, but maybe it'll happen that way. So, you can just try what you can try and see where you can get with it. All right, we are going to open things up. Everything else will carry over until our next agenda. Gentlemen, I want to congratulate you. We got an awful lot done today in terms of catching up and covering a lot of territory. So I appreciate your attention and dedication. Our next meeting will be June 1st. And I am going to open this up for public comment to individuals in town hall.
Good evening, and so happy to see Carol back. And all of you, thank you for doing a great job. I just want to make mention to pass on information that the MTA is having the Planning Commission training Thursday, the 19th in Gaylord. from 4 to 8 PM. It's at one of the resorts, but you can register online and that you can buy a,
That's the same one we went to in Boone.
oh, okay, and did you buy the book?
Lady, what was her name? What's her name?
Yeah,
That's the one over in Gaylord.
yeah, they're
That's
gonna,
the same presentation we get for $20 down in Boone.
okay, so did you, so if you want to have the dinner included, you can go for
But
40.
it's $100 and some dollars.
Yeah, but it's, and then you can get the book, the planning commission book, is that for
Yeah,
$70
I already got it online.
if you want to buy it. I don't know, is it worth it? Because I was offered.
The Township Guide to Planning and Zoning will be getting a copy for everybody. There's
Yes.
usually a bulk purchase discount or something.
Yeah, is that possible that you could also ask the general community if they could, would want one so that we could have it? So we would be educating ourselves, know what's going on and how things should proceed, or is that just confidential?
We could ask the clerk to pick up a couple extra copies and make them available for purchase by the public.
That would be great.
I can ask. I can't, I don't guarantee anything.
Yeah, yeah,
But I can
I
ask.
understand. I understand.
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, and then on the website, when it talks about the date of the meeting, and that if they can put the date and the time and also a link for the Zoom connection right there, so you don't have to somehow go through the website and try to find the Zoom link. That would be great. Just right on the front page webpage where they announce the date of the meeting and the special meeting and 6 o'clock, that line. That would be great. Thank you.
Same answer. I'll do what I can. Additional public comment from town hall. Okay, but public comment from Zoom. Please raise your hand using your hand, wave, or the icon button.
And there's nobody.
We're okay with backup systems. We've all had to use them. All right. All right, as we said, next meeting is June 1st. Bob is no longer online. His continuing education was on the site condo. I will also refer to the gentleman here. There is a brief discussion, a couple paragraphs on the difference between site condo and PUD in the newsletter. So for what it's worth, that was put together and then, oh goodness, they put a picture. Yikes. No one warned me about that. Well, at least it's a couple years old. That can't hurt. I hadn't looked at it in the hard copy. So that is available. Just then Bob ran through it just to, I believe it was Bob, just to run through some of the distinctions between site condo and PUD. Site condos have more than one way that they can be approved, and the rules for the two different approval systems and what they can do with the developments are completely different. So it's a good thing for you to run through. And in the ordinance, it's Article 28 and Article 31, if you want to make a run through. And that's also, I believe I gave the numbers in the
It's
article.
in there, okay.
Yes, that says which one you're looking at for each. But we'll do what we can do. And any other public comment from the planning commission? I knew there was something else we had.
Can we get
That was
some
mine.
copies made of this gentleman's recommendations so we can all have a copy?
Yeah, I believe he gave it to you, Alex.
Yeah.
If you can dig it out of your pile, we'll make copies before we leave.
And then Kim, and for that next meeting, you know, that extra hour really helped move things along. You know, I'm good with it if you want to start the next one at 6 too. So
Okay.
I don't know how everybody else's schedule is. but-
I couldn't change it on my own authority. I can call a special meeting, but I can't move the meeting time.
Okay.
Do we want to change our meeting to 6 o'clock? If I
Well,
have a consensus of the board, I can go ahead. and
That
do
extra hour helped you though, didn't it? I mean, rather than
It
two.
helped us get a lot.
We
done.
got through a lot more done.
So I'm, whatever you want to do, I'm good with.
Okay,
So we're talking about making the meeting 3 hours instead of 2?
yeah. And hopefully not going until 10.
Right.
And just going
I-
to
yeah, no,
closer to 9.
I'm good with it.
Okay, does that work for you, Alex?
Oh, if
If
not,
four of
I'm-
us show up, you
yeah,
can
if
join us
not-
at 7.
If not, it's whatever you guys decided.
You know, when it was dark out at 4:30, like. it didn't really matter, but-
I know the sun today was giving you.
Well, that doesn't mean we have to do this forever.
Little
but
heartache.
If we
No.
can do this for a little while and get caught up, or
Yes.
closer to caught up, it sure wouldn't hurt anything.
Can we give it a shot for next month? And that way it will be one meeting and we won't have to quadruple on the public comment and maybe get a little bit more done. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
We'll go meeting by meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
That sounds like, that's a great idea.
so we will move, hey, meeting time, next meeting time is on the agenda.
6 p.m.
So we will move to 6 PM for our June meeting. Which should have a public hearing on setbacks incorporated. So we need to get that. I'll need to get a notice out for that. All right. Gentlemen, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. We got a lot done tonight. A lot of catching up to do.
Yes.
Did you do
What do we miss?
do a public hearing for 12
We set a public hearing for 12.
for June?
For
Okay,
June, yes.
okay, so I'm just adding that.
And it will have to go to the attorney.
Next
but
meeting
The
agenda.
attorney will have a whole month to get it back this time. He may not like me, but oh well. And then the other ordinance, we're just going to send to the attorney for review.